Maya Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead as she climbed over another pile of twisted metal. The air on Kepler 442b was thick and humid, making every breath feel heavy in her lungs. Her salvage team had been searching this alien scrapyard for 3 days now, and they had found nothing but broken machinery and useless junk. The planet looked like a massive dumping ground. Alien ships had been dropping their waste here for years, maybe decades. Mountains of scrap metal stretched, as far as the eye could see. Some pieces were bigger than Earth buildings, others were small enough to fit in her pocket. All of it was broken, bent, or melted beyond repair. Maya stopped walking when her scanner started beeping. The sound was different this time, not the usual ping of dead metal. This was something organic, something alive. She called to her team over the radio, and they came running. The signal led them to a deep crater, filled with the strangest collection of debris Maya had ever seen. Biomechanical parts were scattered everywhere. Pieces that looked like they had once been living creatures mixed with alien technology. Some parts were still moving, twitching like dying animals. Then Maya saw her. A woman lying in the center of the crater, but she was not human. Her ears were pointed like the elves from old Earth stories, and her skin had a pale green tint. Metal cables ran from her spine into the ground, connecting her to some kind of alien machine. Her arms and legs were covered in silver plating that pulsed with weak blue light. The elf woman's eyes opened when Maya approached. They were filled with pain and confusion, but also with intelligence. She tried to speak, but only made weak, gasping sounds. The metal in her throat was preventing her from talking properly. Maya called for the medical scanner and ran it over the elf woman's body. The results made her stomach turn. The alien technology was not just attached to her, it was growing inside her, becoming part of her organs and bones. Removing it would kill her, but leaving it might be worse. As they worked to stabilize the elf woman, Maya's team found 2 more survivors. The second was tall, with blue skin and large black eyes. She had been beautiful once, but now metal spikes jutted from her skull and thick cables ran down her back. When she looked at Maya, images flashed in Maya's mind, pictures of pain and fear and alien laboratories. The blue woman was telepathic, but the metal in her head was scrambling her abilities. The third survivor was the most disturbing. She looked like she was made of living crystal, her transparent body filled with swirling lights. But black metal veins had grown through her crystal flesh, spreading like poison through her entire form. The metal was fighting against her natural crystal structure, causing her body to crack and spark with unstable energy. Maya's medical officer, Dr. Lisa Park, ran scans on all 3 women. The results were horrifying. Each woman had been surgically altered, their bodies used as test subjects for forced biomechanical integration. The alien technology had been jammed into them without regard for compatibility or survival. Most of the test subjects had died, but these 3 had somehow lived through the process. The elf woman managed to whisper a few words in broken English. She said her name was Luna, and she had been a warrior before the aliens took her. The blue woman could only communicate through painful telepathic flashes, but Maya learned her name was Zara, and she was from a peaceful trading world. The crystal woman was too weak to communicate at all, but her body pulsed with the rhythm of a dying heart. Maya made a decision that would change everything. Instead of trying to remove the alien technology, which would certainly kill the women, she decided to take them back to Earth. Human doctors might find a way to help them, to make the alien machines work with their bodies instead of against them. The trip back to Earth took 2 weeks. During that time, Maya watched the 3 women closely. Luna's warrior instincts were still there, buried under layers of alien programming. She would tense up whenever someone approached, her hand moving to where a sword would have hung at her side. The alien technology had enhanced her reflexes, but it had also trapped her in a constant state of alert. Zara's telepathic abilities were getting stronger as she healed, but they were chaotic and uncontrolled. She would accidentally read the thoughts of everyone around her, experiencing their emotions as if they were her own. The metal implants in her head were supposed to control her powers, but they were designed by aliens who did not understand how telepathy really worked. The crystal woman, who they later learned was named Nova, was the most unstable. Her crystalline body was trying to reject the alien metal, but the integration had gone too deep. She was caught between two incompatible forms of existence, neither fully organic nor fully mechanical. Her body temperature fluctuated wildly, and she gave off strange energy readings that made their ship's instruments go crazy. By the time they reached Earth, Maya had made up her mind. These three women were not just survivors. They were proof that the aliens who had tortured them were cruel and stupid. They had tried to force incompatible technologies together without understanding what they were doing. But humans were different. Humans were good at taking broken things and making them work better than they ever had before. Maya contacted the Aurora research facility as soon as they landed. She told them about the three women and about her idea to help them instead of just trying to cure them. The alien technology was part of them now, but maybe that did not have to be a bad thing. Maybe it could be turned into something wonderful. The three women were transferred to Aurora in medical pods, still unconscious but stable. Maya stayed with them during the transfer, holding Luna's hand as the elf woman drifted in and out of sleep. Luna's eyes would open sometimes, and Maya would see a spark of hope there, as if she knew that someone was finally trying to help her instead of hurt her. Maya looked at the three broken women and made a promise. She would find a way to give them back their lives, and maybe something even better. The aliens had tried to turn them into weapons and failed, but maybe humans could turn them into something the aliens never imagined, something that would make the galaxy a better place. Dr. Kate Williams had seen many strange things in her 20 years as a cybernetics specialist, but nothing had prepared her for the three women lying in the medical pods at Aurora Research Facility. She studied the scans with growing amazement and horror. The alien technology was unlike anything in human databases, and the way it had been forced into these women was brutal beyond imagination. Commander Lisa Hayes stood beside Kate, watching, the readouts with grim determination. Lisa had built Aurora to push the boundaries of human science, but this case was asking them to go further than anyone had ever gone before. The three women were alive, but barely. Every day they waited was another day the alien technology might reject their bodies completely. Kate called in her best team members. Mia Chen arrived first, a young prodigy who specialized in quantum biointegration. Despite being only 25, Mia had already published papers that revolutionized how humans understood the connection between living tissue and artificial systems. She took one look at the scans and immediately began sketching new interface designs. The first challenge was understanding what the alien technology was actually supposed to do. The previous owners had left no instruction manuals or technical specifications. Kate's team had to reverse engineer everything from the implants themselves, working carefully to avoid triggering any defensive systems that might hurt the women. Luna's modifications were the most straightforward to understand. The aliens had tried to turn her into a perfect soldier, enhancing her natural elf reflexes and strength. But they had done it wrong, forcing her nervous system to work with incompatible processors that caused constant pain and confusion. Her body was fighting the implants, creating inflammation and rejection responses that were slowly killing her. Kate developed a different approach. Instead of forcing the alien technology to dominate Luna's natural systems, she created biocompatible interfaces that would let both systems work together. She designed neural bridges that could translate between elf biology and alien electronics, allowing Luna's warrior instincts to enhance the technology instead of being suppressed by it. Zara's case was more complex. The blue woman's telepathic abilities were natural to her species, but the alien implants were trying to control and direct those powers. The result was like trying to dam a river with a screen door. Her telepathic energy was building up behind the alien blocks, creating dangerous pressure that could damage her brain permanently. Mia solved this problem with an elegant solution. Instead of blocking Zara's telepathy, she designed amplifiers that would give Zara conscious control over her abilities. The new interfaces would let Zara focus her telepathic powers like a laser beam or spread them out like a radar dish, depending on what she needed to do. Nova presented the biggest challenge. Her crystalline body was fundamentally different from organic life, operating on principles that human science barely understood. The alien metal was trying to impose mechanical logic on a crystal matrix that worked more like a living computer. The two systems were incompatible at the most basic level. Kate spent weeks studying Nova's crystal structure before she understood the solution. The aliens had treated Nova like a machine, but her crystal body was actually a form of life that humans had never encountered before. Kate designed interfaces that would treat the alien technology like symbiotic organisms, letting them grow together naturally instead of being forced into rigid patterns. The integration process took 3 months. Each woman was kept in a specialized medical pod while the new interfaces were carefully installed. Kate's team worked around the clock, monitoring every vital sign and adjusting the interfaces as they learned how each woman's unique biology responded to the changes. Luna was the first to wake up. Her eyes opened gradually, focusing on Kate with clarity that had been missing for months. She sat up slowly, testing her enhanced reflexes. The alien technology was still there, but now it felt like a natural part of her body instead of a foreign invader. She could feel her combat instincts interfacing with tactical processors, giving her the ability to analyze multiple threats simultaneously while maintaining her natural elf grace. Zara awakened next, her telepathic abilities immediately reaching out to touch the minds around her. But now she could control the contact, choosing what to read and what to ignore. She smiled for the first time since her rescue, projecting feelings of gratitude and wonder to Kate and her team. The alien amplifiers were working perfectly, turning her chaotic telepathic storms into focused, precise communication. Nova's awakening was the most dramatic. Her crystal body blazed with controlled energy as the new interfaces came online. The alien metal was no longer fighting her crystal matrix, instead working with it to create something entirely new. She could store and manipulate vast amounts of energy, creating force fields and energy constructs with just a thought. But Kate and her team had created something beyond just 3 enhanced individuals. The new interfaces were designed to be compatible with each other, allowing the 3 women to link their abilities together if they chose to. When they first tried connecting their systems, the results amazed everyone. Luna's tactical abilities combined with Zara's telepathic range to create battlefield awareness that covered entire star systems. Nova's energy manipulation could power and enhance both of their abilities, creating a feedback loop that made all 3 women more capable than they had ever been individually. Commander Hayes watched the 3 women working together and saw something that gave her an idea. They were not just enhanced individuals anymore, they were components of something larger. What if they could build a ship that was designed around their abilities, a vessel that would be an extension of their enhanced bodies rather than just a vehicle they rode in? Kate was skeptical at first. Building a ship around 3 living beings was unprecedented and potentially dangerous. But as she watched Luna, Zara, and Nova practicing with their new abilities, she began to see the possibilities. A ship that could think and react as fast as Luna, communicate across space like Zara, and manipulate energy like Nova would be unlike anything that had ever existed. The 3 women were consulted about the idea, and their response was immediate and unanimous. They wanted to do it. They had been victims of alien cruelty, broken and discarded like trash, but humans had given them a chance to become something greater than they had ever been. They wanted to use their new abilities to help others who had suffered like they had. Mia began designing the ship interfaces, while Kate worked on the integration protocols. The ship would not contain the 3 women, it would be an extension of them. Luna would become the tactical and weapons systems, her enhanced reflexes, controlling every aspect of combat. Zara would be communications and navigation, her telepathic abilities reaching across space to guide the ship and communicate with other vessels. Nova would be the power core and defensive systems, her crystal matrix providing unlimited energy and protection. The design phase took 6 months with constant input from Luna, Zara, and Nova. They were partners in the process, not subjects. Every system was designed to work with their abilities rather than despite them. The ship would be fast enough to match Luna's reflexes, sensitive enough to amplify Zara's telepathy, and powerful enough to channel Nova's energy manipulation. Construction began in the orbital shipyards above Earth. The ship was unlike anything humans had ever built, incorporating technologies from 3 different species and design principles that had never been tested. Kate's team worked alongside the best engineers and scientists that Earth could provide, creating something that was part spaceship, part computer, and part living organism. As the ship took shape, the three women spent time learning to interface with its systems. They would sit in the half-finished control center, their new abilities reaching out to touch the ship's growing consciousness. It was not just a machine, it was becoming an extension of their combined will. Maya visited them often during construction, amazed at what her decision to save three broken women had led to. The ship was beautiful and terrible, sleek and powerful, designed for exploration and combat in equal measure. She suggested a name that everyone immediately accepted. They would call it the USS Liberation, because that was what it represented. Liberation from the cruelty that had broken these women, and liberation for others who might suffer the same fate. The day finally came, when the ship was ready for its first test flight. Luna, Zara, and Nova took their positions in the integrated control center, their consciousness flowing into the ship's systems like water flowing into a riverbed. For the first time since their rescue, they felt complete. The moment Luna, Zara, and Nova connected fully with the USS Liberation, everything changed. The ship came alive around them, not just as a machine, but as an extension of their combined consciousness. Each woman could feel the other's thoughts and abilities flowing through the ship's neural networks, creating something none of them had expected. Luna found herself merged with every weapons system and tactical sensor on the ship. Her elf warrior instincts, enhanced by alien technology and refined by human engineering, could now process thousands of combat scenarios simultaneously. She could feel the ship's weapons like they were extensions of her own body, each missile, an energy cannon responding to her will as naturally as her own sword had once done. The sensation was overwhelming at first. Luna could perceive threats from millions of kilometers away, tracking the movement of asteroids and space debris with perfect accuracy. Her enhanced reflexes were now operating at the speed of light, letting her react to dangers before they even fully formed. She was no longer just a warrior, she was the ship's entire combat consciousness. Zara's telepathic abilities expanded beyond anything she had thought possible. Connected to the ship's communication arrays, her mind could reach across star systems, touching the thoughts of distant worlds and alien civilizations. She could feel the electromagnetic songs of planets, the quantum whispers of stellar phenomena, and the artificial thoughts of other ships moving through space. But more than that, Zara had become the ship's navigator and communication center. She could sense gravitational currents and space-time distortions, guiding the Liberation through hyperspace with an intuition that no computer could match. When she reached out with her abilities, she was not just reading minds, she was reading the very fabric of space itself. Nova's transformation was the most dramatic. Her crystalline body had become the ship's power core. Her crystal matrix now spanning throughout the Liberation's hull like a nervous system made of living light. She could absorb energy from stars, store power in her crystal structures, and release it in whatever form the ship needed. Nova could create force fields that bent space itself, making the ship nearly invisible to sensors. She could channel energy into the weapons systems, giving them power that defied known physics. Most amazingly, she could manipulate matter at the quantum level, allowing the ship to repair itself and even reshape its hull when needed. The three women discovered that their connection went deeper than just sharing the ship's systems. They could communicate without words, sharing thoughts and emotions as easily as breathing. But they remained individuals, each with her own personality and memories. Luna was still the fierce warrior, Zara was still the gentle telepath, and Nova was still the curious explorer. The ship enhanced them without changing who they were. Captain Amy Foster watched from the bridge as the three women learned to work with their new abilities. Amy had been chosen to command the Liberation because of her experience with experimental ships, but she had never seen anything like this. The ship moved with a grace and intelligence that seemed almost magical, responding to threats before they appeared and navigating through space with impossible precision. Commander Beth Torres worked directly with Luna, learning to coordinate the ship's weapons systems. Beth had been a weapons specialist for 15 years, but watching Luna work was like seeing the future of space combat. Luna could target dozens of objects simultaneously, calculating trajectories and firing solutions with an accuracy that no human or computer could match. Dr. Sam Parker served as the communications officer, interfacing with Zara's expanded telepathic abilities. Sam had always been good with languages and alien cultures, But working with Zara opened up entirely new possibilities. Zara could translate alien thoughts directly, understanding the meaning behind words that had no human equivalent. The ship's first real test came sooner than anyone expected. 3 days after the successful integration, long-range sensors detected a group of unknown vessels approaching Earth's outer system. The ships were moving fast, and their energy signatures matched those found in the alien scrapyard where Luna, Zara, and Nova had been discovered. The hegemony had found them. Captain Foster called for battle stations, but Luna was already ahead of her. The Liberation's weapons systems came online with smooth precision, targeting arrays locking onto the incoming ships before they even appeared on the main view screen. Luna could feel the hostile intent of the alien crews, their thoughts focused on reclaiming what they considered stolen property. Zara reached out with her telepathic abilities, reading the minds of the approaching aliens. What she found filled her with rage and determination. The hegemony commanders thought of her, Luna, and Nova as escaped tools, valuable equipment that needed to be recovered. They had no concept of the 3 women as living beings with rights and feelings. More than that, Zara could sense the minds of other prisoners aboard the hegemony ships. Dozens of alien beings were trapped in biomechanical torture chambers, undergoing the same horrific experiments that had been performed on her and her friends. The hegemony was still creating more victims, still treating sentient beings as raw materials for their twisted science. Nova felt the Liberation's hull vibrating with contained energy as she prepared the ship's defensive systems. She could sense the weapon signatures of the approaching ships, analyzing their capabilities and developing countermeasures. The hegemony vessels were powerful, but they were built by engineers who thought in terms of brute force rather than elegant solutions. The first hegemony ship opened fire while still at extreme range, sending plasma bolts screaming toward the Liberation. Luna responded instantly, the ship dancing between the energy beams with impossible grace. She returned fire with precisely targeted shots that disabled the alien vessel's weapons without destroying it, leaving the ship helpless, but not dead. The second ship tried to use its superior speed to outmaneuver the Liberation, but Zara was already reading the pilot's intentions. She guided Nova's energy fields to create gravitational distortions that threw the alien ship off course, sending it tumbling into space. Nova then wrapped the vessel in an energy net that drained its power systems, leaving it floating dead in space. The third ship was the largest, a heavy cruiser that carried the hegemony commander. This alien had been personally responsible for the experiments performed on Luna, Zara, and Nova. His mind was filled with arrogance and contempt, confident that his superior firepower would let him reclaim his escaped property. He was wrong. Liberation moved like a living thing, flowing through space with movements that seemed to defy physics. Luna's tactical abilities had turned the ship into the perfect predator, able to anticipate and counter every move the enemy made. Zara's telepathic range let her read the thoughts of every crew member on the alien ship, predicting their actions before they made them. Nova's energy manipulation created weapons and defenses that the hegemony had never encountered before. The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, all 3 hegemony ships were disabled and drifting in space. The Liberation had not taken a single hit, moving through the enemy fire like a ghost made of starlight. But the victory revealed something that changed everything. When Zara probed the disabled ships, she found that they were carrying detailed records of hegemony operations across the galaxy. Hundreds of worlds were being used as sources for unwilling test subjects. Thousands of beings were suffering in biomechanical laboratories, their bodies and minds being violated in the name of alien science. Luna, Zara, and Nova shared their thoughts through the ship's neural networks, and their decision was unanimous. They would not just defend themselves or return to Earth in triumph. They were going to hunt down every hegemony facility they could find and free every prisoner they could save. The 3 women had been victims once, broken and discarded like worthless trash. But humans had shown them a different way, treating them as partners and equals, rather than tools to be used. Now they would share that gift with others, showing the galaxy that there was an alternative to the hegemony's cruelty. Captain Foster understood their decision immediately. The Liberation was not just a ship anymore, it was a weapon of liberation in the truest sense. They would strike at the hegemony wherever they found them, freeing the oppressed and showing the galaxy that even the most broken individuals could become something magnificent when treated with respect and compassion. The USS Liberation turned away from Earth and headed for deep space, carrying its unique crew toward their first rescue mission. Luna's tactical systems were already analyzing hegemony ship movements, looking for patterns that would reveal the locations of their secret laboratories. Zara's telepathic abilities were reaching across space, listening for the psychic screams of beings in torment. Nova's energy matrix was building power for the battles to come. They were no longer just three women who had survived alien torture. They were the heart and soul of something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. They were the USS Liberation, and they were going to change everything. 6 months had passed since the USS Liberation left Earth on its mission of liberation, and the ship had become a legend across the galaxy. Stories spread through trade routes and communication networks about a mysterious vessel that appeared wherever the hegemony operated, freeing prisoners and leaving enemy fleets in ruins. The Liberation had rescued over 300 beings from 17 different hegemony facilities. Each rescue mission taught Luna, Zara, and Nova something new about their abilities and about the scope of the hegemony's cruelty. They had found laboratories on dead worlds, prison ships hidden in asteroid fields, and research stations disguised as mining operations. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge watching her unusual crew work together with growing amazement. The rescued aliens had been given a choice when they were freed. They could be taken to safe worlds where they could recover and rebuild their lives, or they could join the Liberation's mission. Many chose to stay, creating a crew unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Plot Commander Beth Torres had learned to work seamlessly with Luna's tactical consciousness. Beth would identify targets and objectives, while Luna handled the precise execution of combat maneuvers. Together, they had developed new fighting techniques that combined human strategy with enhanced elf instincts and alien technology. Dr. Sam Parker worked closely with Zara to coordinate communications with their diverse crew. The Liberation now carried beings from dozens of different species, each with their own languages and customs. Zara's telepathic abilities made translation unnecessary, allowing the crew to share thoughts and feelings directly, but their success had attracted attention from the highest levels of the hegemony. High Command had decided that the Liberation represented an unacceptable threat to their operations. They were assembling the largest task force in their history to hunt down and destroy the rebellious ship. Zara sensed the approaching danger days before the enemy fleet arrived. Her telepathic range had grown stronger with each rescue mission, and she could now feel hostile thoughts from across multiple star systems. The hegemony was sending over 200 ships, including their most powerful battle cruisers and their flagship dreadnought. The enemy fleet was commanded by Admiral Vorthak, a cruel alien who had personally overseen some of the worst experimental programs. His mind was filled with rage at the Liberation's interference and determination to recapture the 3 women he considered his most valuable test subjects. Luna's tactical analysis showed that the odds were impossible. Even with all their advantages, the Liberation could not fight 200 ships at once. But she also detected something in the enemy fleet composition that gave her an idea. Many of the ships were crewed by aliens from species that the hegemony had conquered, beings who were serving their oppressors only because they had no choice. Zara reached out with her telepathic abilities, touching the minds of crew members throughout the approaching fleet. What she found confirmed Luna's suspicions. Hundreds of aliens were serving aboard hegemony ships against their will, their minds controlled by neural implants or their families held hostage. Many of them had lost friends and relatives to the same experimental programs that had tortured Luna, Zara, and Nova. Nova began building energy reserves for the coming battle, drawing power from nearby stars and storing it in her crystal matrix. But she also started working on something new, a way to broadcast Zara's telepathic abilities across the entire enemy fleet. If they could show the enslaved crew members the truth about their situation, they might be able to turn the hegemony's own forces against them. The battle took place in the Zerion Nebula, a massive cloud of ionized gas that interfered with sensors and communications. The Liberation used the nebula's natural properties to even the odds, hiding among the gas clouds while picking off enemy ships one by one. Luna guided the ship through the nebula with impossible precision, using gravitational currents and gas density variations to mask their movements. Her enhanced reflexes let her react to threats before they fully materialized, dodging plasma bolts and missile swarms that should have been impossible to avoid. Zara used the nebula's electromagnetic properties to amplify her telepathic abilities, reaching into the minds of enemy crew members across the entire fleet. She showed them images of the experimental facilities, the torture chambers, the countless victims who had died for hegemony science. Many of the enslaved aliens had never known the full extent of their oppressors' cruelty. Nova channeled the nebula's raw energy into weapons that could punch through the heaviest armor. She created energy nets that disabled entire squadrons of fighters, force fields that redirected enemy fire back at their own ships, and plasma storms that turned sections of the nebula into deadly weapons. The tide of battle turned when Zara's telepathic broadcast reached the crew of a hegemony battlecruiser, crewed entirely by enslaved Kalari warriors. The Kalari had been told that their families were safe in hegemony protective custody, but Zara showed them the truth. Their loved ones had been used as test subjects, their children experimented on until they died. The Kalari warriors turned their weapons on their own ship's command crew, seizing control of the battlecruiser and turning its guns on the rest of the hegemony fleet. Their rebellion spread like wildfire as Zara continued broadcasting the truth to other enslaved crews. Within an hour, half the hegemony fleet was in chaos. Ships were turning on each other as enslaved crews fought for their freedom, while others simply shut down their weapons and refused to fight. Admiral Vorthak's carefully organized battle formation collapsed into complete disorder, but Vorthak still had his flagship and his most loyal crews. The massive dreadnought pushed through the nebula toward the Liberation, its weapons charging, for a final assault. The alien admiral's mind was consumed with rage and the desire for revenge against the three women who had destroyed his perfect order. The dreadnought was larger than some space stations, armed with weapons that could crack planets, and shielded by energy barriers that had never been breached. But it had been designed by minds that thought in terms of overwhelming force rather than elegant solutions. Luna analyzed the massive ship's structure, looking for weaknesses that conventional weapons could not exploit. She found them in the power distribution networks, centralized systems that could be disrupted if hit with precisely the right frequency of energy pulses. Zara reached into Admiral Vorthak's mind, not to control him, but to understand him. She learned about his fears and obsessions, his desperate need to prove his superiority over the beings he considered inferior. She used this knowledge to predict his tactical decisions, staying one step ahead of his increasingly frantic attempts to destroy the Liberation. Nova unleashed energy attacks unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. She turned sections of the nebula into focused plasma beams, created gravitational anomalies that bent space around the dreadnought, and generated electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the massive ship's systems. The final blow came when Nova channeled the power of 3 nearby stars through the Liberation's weapons systems. The resulting energy beam punched through the dreadnought's shields like they were made of paper, striking the ship's central power core with surgical precision. The massive vessel did not explode. Instead, it simply went dark, all its systems failing simultaneously as its power grid collapsed. Admiral Vorthak found himself floating in a dead ship, surrounded by the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. But the real victory was not the destruction of the hegemony task force. As news of the battle spread, enslaved beings across the galaxy began to rise up against their oppressors. The Liberation's broadcast had shown them that resistance was possible, that even the most broken and discarded individuals could become something powerful when treated with respect. Zara used her telepathic abilities to coordinate with the rebellious crews, helping them organize and plan their next moves. Many of the freed ships joined together into a Liberation fleet, following the USS Liberation as it continued its mission across the galaxy. Luna found herself coordinating the tactics of dozens of ships, her enhanced abilities allowing her to manage multiple battles simultaneously. Each rescued crew brought new knowledge and new capabilities to their growing fleet. Nova worked with the engineers and scientists among the rescued aliens, helping them adapt their ships with new technologies, based on the Liberation's hybrid systems. The fleet was becoming more than just a collection of individual vessels. It was evolving into a unified force for change. Captain Foster realized that they had reached a turning point. The Liberation was no longer just one ship fighting against impossible odds. They had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide revolution, showing oppressed beings everywhere that freedom was possible. The Hegemony High Command responded to their defeat by declaring the Liberation and its allies to be enemies of galactic peace and stability. They began assembling an even larger fleet, calling in ships from across their empire to hunt down the rebels. But it was too late. The idea of liberation had spread beyond their ability to contain it. On worlds throughout hegemony space, enslaved beings were rising up against their oppressors. Prison facilities were being destroyed by their own former guards. Research stations were being sabotaged by the very scientists who had once worked there. Luna, Zara, and Nova had started as three broken women, discarded like trash by aliens who saw them as failed experiments. But humans had shown them a different way, treating them as partners and equals rather than tools to be used. Now they were sharing that gift with the entire galaxy. The USS Liberation turned toward the next hegemony facility on their list, followed by a growing fleet of liberated ships. They had proven that even the most damaged individuals could become something magnificent when treated with compassion and respect. Now they would continue spreading that message across the stars, one rescue mission at a time. 2 years had passed since the Liberation's first rescue mission, and the galaxy had changed forever. What had begun as one experimental ship with 3 enhanced women had grown into a movement that spanned hundreds of star systems. The Liberation fleet now consisted of over 800 vessels, each crewed by beings who had been freed from hegemony oppression. Luna had evolved far beyond her original capabilities. Her consciousness now coordinated the tactical operations of the entire fleet, managing thousands of ships in dozens of simultaneous battles. Her enhanced elf instincts had adapted to space warfare on a scale that no single mind should have been able to comprehend, yet she handled it with graceful efficiency. Zara's telepathic abilities had become legendary across the galaxy. She could communicate with entire worlds simultaneously, translating not just languages but cultural concepts and emotional meanings that had no equivalent between species. Her mind had become a bridge between civilizations, allowing former enemies to understand each other for the first time. Nova's crystal matrix had grown throughout the Liberation, creating a living network that connected all the ships in their fleet. She could share power between vessels across vast distances, coordinate repairs and upgrades in real time, and create defensive barriers that protected entire star systems from attack. But their greatest achievement was not military victory or technological advancement. They had proven that cooperation was more powerful than oppression, that beings from different worlds could work together as equals rather than masters and slaves. The Liberation fleet had become a symbol of hope for oppressed beings everywhere. Captain Amy Foster stood on the bridge of the Liberation, watching status reports from their latest rescue operations. 3 more hegemony facilities had been liberated in the past week, freeing over 500 prisoners and adding 20 new ships to their fleet. Each rescue brought new allies and new knowledge about hegemony operations. Commander Beth Torres had become the fleet's tactical coordinator, working with Luna to manage battles across multiple star systems. Her human strategic thinking, combined with Luna's enhanced reflexes, had created new forms of space warfare that the hegemony could not counter. Dr. Sam Parker served as the fleet's diplomatic coordinator, working with Zara to establish communication with newly liberated worlds. Many planets that had been hegemony vassals were declaring independence and asking for protection from the Liberation fleet. The Hegemony High Command had grown desperate. Their empire was collapsing as world after world rebelled against their rule. Enslaved races were rising up everywhere, inspired by the Liberation's example and supported by the fleet's growing power. In a final act of desperation, the hegemony decided to make an example that would crush the rebellion once and for all. They gathered their entire remaining fleet, over 500 ships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts, and set course for the Liberation's last known position. Zara sensed their approach weeks before the enemy fleet arrived. But this time, instead of trying to avoid the confrontation, she, Luna, and Nova made a different decision. They would face the hegemony's entire remaining force in one decisive battle that would end their reign of terror forever. The final battle took place in the Andorian system, where the Liberation Fleet had been helping to establish a new government on a recently liberated world. The Hegemony Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their massive dreadnoughts leading hundreds of smaller vessels in what they intended to be the final assault. Admiral Thexus commanded the Hegemony Fleet from the Super Dreadnought Domination, a ship larger than most cities and armed with weapons that could destroy entire moons. His mind was filled with cold determination to end the rebellion by any means necessary, even if it meant wiping out entire worlds to make his point. But Thexus had made the same mistake that every Hegemony commander made. He thought in terms of overwhelming force and absolute control, unable to understand the power of cooperation and mutual respect. The Liberation Fleet did not just outnumber his forces, they fought with a unity that the Hegemony could never achieve. Luna coordinated the attack with perfect precision, 800 ships moving as one vast organism. Her tactical consciousness had evolved to the point where she could predict and counter every move the enemy made, turning their own formation against them. Zara reached out across space to touch the minds of every Hegemony crew member, showing them what their empire had really done to the galaxy. She revealed the true cost of their conquests, the billions of beings who had suffered and died to maintain Hegemony power. The effect was immediate and devastating. Throughout the Hegemony Fleet, crew members began to question their orders and their loyalty. Many of them had families on worlds that were now rebelling, and they realized they were being asked to destroy their own people to preserve a system that had never truly served them. Nova unleashed the full power of the Liberation's energy matrix, creating weapons and defenses that seemed to violate the laws of physics. She generated force fields that protected entire squadrons of allied ships, energy beams that could disable dreadnoughts without destroying them, and gravitational anomalies that turned the enemy's own momentum against them. The battle raged for 6 hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The Hegemony Fleet was powerful, but they were fighting to preserve a system of oppression that offered them nothing but fear and servitude. The Liberation Fleet fought for freedom, for the right of all beings to live with dignity and respect. One by one, Hegemony ships stopped fighting and surrendered. Their crews had realized that they were on the wrong side of history, that they were fighting to preserve a system that had brought nothing but misery to the galaxy. Some ships even turned their weapons on their own command vessels, joining the rebellion in the middle of the battle. Admiral Thexus found himself alone at the end, his massive dreadnought surrounded by the combined fleet of liberated beings. His own crew had mutinied, locking him in his command chamber while they negotiated their surrender. But even in defeat, Thexus tried one last desperate gambit. He activated the Domination's self-destruct system, hoping to take as many rebels with him as possible. The massive ship began building toward a nuclear explosion that would destroy everything within 100,000 kilometers. Nova reacted instantly, wrapping the dreadnought in an energy field that contained the explosion while simultaneously draining its power. The nuclear fire turned into harmless light, absorbed by Nova's crystal matrix and redistributed as clean energy to the Liberation Fleet. With Admiral Thexus captured and the Hegemony Fleet destroyed or converted, the war was effectively over. But Luna, Zara, and Nova knew that their real work was just beginning. They had to help build a new galactic civilization based on cooperation instead of oppression. The Liberation Fleet became the foundation for the Galactic Liberation Alliance, a confederation of free worlds that worked together as equals. Each species contributed their unique abilities and knowledge, creating a civilization that was stronger and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Luna's tactical abilities were used to coordinate disaster relief and peaceful exploration missions. Her skills in warfare were redirected toward protecting the innocent and exploring dangerous regions of space. Zara's telepathic network became the foundation for galactic communication, allowing beings from different worlds to share ideas and experiences across vast distances. Her abilities helped create understanding between species that had been enemies for millennia. Nova's energy manipulation helped terraform dead worlds and create new technologies that improved life for billions of beings. Her crystal matrix became the heart of a power grid that could supply clean energy to entire star systems. The three women had come so far from their origins as broken test subjects in an alien scrapyard. They had been discarded as failures, tortured and experimented on until they were barely alive, but humans had shown them a different way, treating them as partners and equals rather than tools to be used. Now they were the heart of a new galactic civilization, proof that even the most damaged individuals could become something magnificent when treated with respect and compassion. They had taken the cruelty and oppression of the hegemony and transformed it into something beautiful, showing the galaxy that cooperation was always stronger than domination. Captain Foster, now Admiral Foster of the Liberation Alliance, watched from the bridge as their fleet continued its mission of exploration and liberation. There were still corners of the galaxy where oppression existed, still beings who needed rescue and worlds that needed freedom. The USS Liberation led the way toward the next challenge, its unique crew ready to face whatever dangers awaited them. Luna, Zara, and Nova had become legends, but they had never forgotten their origins or the humans who had saved them. They were living proof that the greatest weapon against tyranny was not superior firepower or advanced technology, but simple compassion and the willingness to treat all beings with dignity and respect. They had been left as scrap by aliens who saw them as failed experiments, but they had been reforged by humans into something truly unstoppable. The galaxy was free, and it would remain free as long as beings like Luna, Zara, and Nova continued to fight for the simple principle that every sentient being deserved the chance to live with hope and dignity. They had become the unstoppable ship not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of their unbreakable commitment to liberation and justice for all.